Hi everyone, and welcome to our next tutorial video. In this video we're going to take a look at how we can use our push button to control some other piece of hardware, whether it's a light or a speaker or whatever it is. And in order to do that, we're going to use something called selection in computer programming, and it just doesn't apply to this language, but it applies to all computer languages, and it's very common. It looks like this on the right hand side. We are going to use something called if then else, and the way it works is if we want to test some condition, and if that condition is true, then we are going to do something. Turn on a light, turn on a speaker, turn on an alarm, whatever it might be. And if that condition is not true, then it jumps to else and it does something different. So it doesn't turn the light on, or it turns on a different light, whatever it might be. So when we talk about selection in computer programming, this is one example using an if then else statement. So that's what we're going to take a look at here. From the last video, we set up a push button. This is one circuit here. This is a separate circuit here. This circuit is an input circuit. It inputs a signal to our Arduino board to pin 7. This is an output circuit. It is driven by output port 13, where we can turn on an LED. What we have to do is we have to create a variable to hold the state of the push button. The push button is what we call a digital input. It's either on or off. It's a low, or it's a high, or it's a 0, or it's a 1. If it's not pushed the way it's built right now, it will be a 0 or 0 volts. If it is pushed, it will be a digital 1 or a high or 5 volts. And what this block does is it basically says go read whatever the value is at port 7 and take that value and put it into the variable called push button. So if it's not pushed, it will put a value of 0 or low. If it is pushed, it will put a value of 1 or high into the variable called push button. Remember that microcontrollers continually run all the time, just like your microwave. It's sitting there waiting for you to push buttons. It is running in a continuous loop. It's waiting for you to push on a button. So push button is a variable that holds the value of the push button, whether it's low or high. This is called a math comparator function, and basically all it does is it looks at the push button and sees if it is high. That's what this block does. If we go to control and we scroll down, we can see that we have some blocks for selection. So I can bring this in here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this math comparator function and I'm going to drop it right here. So I'm just going to pull it down, I'm going to put it right there, and then let's move it up and join it to this. And basically what it says here now is, first of all, the first thing that you need to do is go look at pin 7. Take that value, low or high, and stick it into the variable called push button. Next, we're going to check if the push button is high. In other words, if it is pushed, we are going to do something. Let's go to output, and we're going to drag in here this block here. We're going to say if it is pushed, then we are going to set pin 13 to high. In other words, we're going to turn on that port, which turns on the LED. Else means if this is not true, it's going to go down here and do this. And what we're going to tell it is we're going to bring in another block here. And we're going to say if it's not pushed, then we're going to go to pin 13 and we're going to keep it low. So in other words, here's what it says. Go and read pin 7. Take that value and stick it into a variable called push button. Next, we're going to go to selection. We're going to say if the value of push button is high, then we're going to set pin 13 to high. In other words, we're going to turn on the LED. If it's not, it's going to jump to else, and it's going to set pin 13 to a low. In other words, it's not going to turn it on. So let's try this with our simulator and see if it works like we expect. So let's start. And if we go over here to the push button and we push on it, yes, it does turn on our LED. When I let go of my mouse, let go of the push button, it turns off as we expect. So when we do push it, then it's performing this part of the selection. If I don't push it, then it's performing this part of the selection. Remember that this is running all the time, so it's constantly checking the state of the push button, and it does it really quickly. We don't want to put any weights in here. So in other words, I don't want to have a weight block because that's going to impact the functionality of my push button. I want this loop to run as fast as possible, so I want to make sure I don't have any weight blocks inside here. This way that when I press the push button, I get a quick response. Like so. And when I let go, it turns off right away. So that's the use of selection in programming. Take a minute to try this in Tinkercad and see if you can get this to work. That's it for this video. We'll talk to you soon.